Hello and welcome to the Digital Women Awards, 3 days of power pack sessions looking at entrepreneurship, the next big opportunity, financial opportunity, economic opportunity for women. It's been 7 years of celebrating this absolutely fantastic initiative, and it's been an exhilarating journey for me personally to get to know the power, the passion, the potential that women today in India have and offer. Today, as we start off this discussion with three very, very critical speakers, we are discussing how women can contribute far more to the economy. How will that happen if they start becoming friendlier with finance? Three important voices covering different aspects of the fintech industry are joining me here. Rajiv Anand, who's the Deputy Managing Director at Axis Bank. Thanks, Rajiv. Always a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you for
Kavita
having me.
Gupta is the founder of the Delta Blockchain Fund and a lecturer at Stanford University. She's joining us as well. And from PinBox is Parul Seth Khanna, who's looking at how can finance be provided, particularly from a savings behavior across the value chain as far as people go. So let's dive straight into it. What is the big finance opportunity when it comes to women? Rajiv.
I think investing with a gender lens is really driving the sustainability agenda across organizations, including Access. If you look at the value chain, we are mindful of the need to look for representation across the value chain, employees, customers, vendors, partners. And I think if you look at the narrative that women are not confident investors and that they're risk averse, I think that's a bad narrative. And that I think is something that needs to be changed or at least reframed. Because ultimately, investing is about discipline and good habits and taking decisions aligned to between expectation and reality. There's actually a study called Boys Will Be Boys, Gender Overconfidence and Common Stock Investment, where the study actually shows that women are better investors than men. Surprise, surprise. So to change the narrative is to reframe the statements and build discipline around it. And I think that is really the key. So as long as we are able to demonstrate that women have a pretty good understanding of finance and money, I think that itself is the beginning.
Yeah.
And I think there are enough examples of this. And I think as women entrepreneurs, and which is really what you've been driving all these years, I think as women entrepreneurs bring this about, and with their better understanding of women's needs, particularly in the space of financial services, I think the multiplier impact to the larger universe, I think is certainly going to be tremendous.
So, quick follow up there, Rajiv. You just said that that women who are interested in money, right? It's a great starting point. What if women are not interested in money? How do we break that sort of issue and get them interested in the fintech piece? When I say fintech, and the reason I bring that up is that there is this hope that all these digitized forms of entering the banking system will really hasten the process that we've not been able to crack these many decades.
It's already happening, Shaili, and let me just share some numbers from Access Mutual Fund. They are seeing a 7x increase in the number of women visitors to their website January 2020 over October 21. Similarly, the number of women investors has increased by 30% in the same period. So I think you're already seeing a different universe driven by technology, driven by the fact that it has become that much easier to understand and b execute on financial services is driving more and more women into financial services. And when I mean into financial service, not necessarily into financial services jobs, but to be able to use financial services through the use of technology. Yes, technology eases and can sometimes create its own access issues, but though on balance it is an effective instrument on driving access to markets, and clearly we are seeing that happening. And so therefore I feel that women in fintech should be able to enable that creation of products and services to meet the needs of women consumers in financial services.
Indeed. So, Parul, coming to you, I mean, there's a great behavioral piece in this overall approach. As a company that looks at the whole saving piece, what is your what are the trends you're picking on the ground interacting with women as you service a large number of international markets, including India, of course?
Thanks, Shaili. I think just picking up from what Rajiv said, women are, I would say, better savers than men. We all know that women, the income group that we serve at PinBox is mostly the lower income, self-employed women, and then I'm talking about women who are capable of saving. Now, the homogeneity in the behavior of women, whether it is Africa or America or Latin America or the Pacific, is really the same. They have a few challenges around literacy, which is mostly financial literacy. Challenges around intermittent income because of family responsibilities, or you have lesser income in comparable jobs, or no income at all, right? However, they all save. They always know how much money they have in their pocket. They're saving in informal instruments, or they don't really go on to the formal instruments because they're intimidated by the technology. Now, coming to the access of technology, I have to add with a very personal experience, Shelley. My mother is 75 years old and she's a Candy Crush queen, somebody who's never been on technology, right? And then there is my domestic help who is a TikTok queen, right? Now, the reason why they are on these technologies and they accept it and embrace it is because there is no wrong step, there is no intimidation, there is no, it's easy access, it's colorful, and they're only worried about beating the next person, right? Which is my Marcy's and my mom's case, right? But for if you're able to give financial services in the same way, where even A, they're vernacular, B, they're coming at a way where there are a few tippity taps, right? The I'm sorry, Rajiv, but any formal financial institution is interested in them when they enter a formal financial institution, right? So there is easy access round the corner, and the most important bit is the servicing. Getting somebody to open the account is relatively a breeze, but to give them the services to continually do that and touch and feel their money, pretty much as I say with the way they use WhatsApp, the way they use TikTok, the way they use Instagram, I see no reason why financial services and delivery cannot be done in the same way.
Right. Do you have a response to that, Rajiv?
No, I completely agree with with what Parul is saying. That I think technology is the enabler. I don't
Yeah.
see sort of women in general struggling in terms of using technology, WhatsApp, Instagram, whatever else it is, isn't it? And so therefore, I think technology is the enabler, but I think we've got to do a better job in terms of creating the products and services that are aligned to the needs of women in women savers and converting those savers into investors.
Yeah. So, this is a conversation that comes up every time. Women are not really looking for products designed for them, because invariably I'm having a conversation with a banker and say, yeah, we launched a card for women. It was called something pink, and women didn't take to it. And the point being that women are basically wanting to use the same products because inherently they want to make as much money as anybody else, in the traditional market has made, which has been men. So, with that respect, and maybe Rajiv, you can take this first, is that how do banks change the narrative?
I think I completely agree with you, and I've had internal battles on this as well. That that women's needs in that sense are very similar to men's and to men, and therefore why should we be creating different products? Completely agree with that. But I think having said that, I think the point that Parul was making is very valid. That there is a bridge that needs to be created to start with. Where if, for example, you are saving, you're converting savings into investments. Why are you saving? Why are you doing that is critical, and therefore maybe for a investor who's well educated on that, that may not be that bridge may not be necessary. But for somebody who's coming on the first time, we need to demonstrate that if you want to convert expectations into reality. For example, oh, I want to go on a trip to Iceland 2 years from today, and therefore I want to save. That gives you that conversion of expectation into reality, and makes that whole process that much easier. So it may not necessarily be a different product, but the way you packaged it, it's become a little more easier to understand for somebody who's making that shift from one side to the other.
Right. So even as you do that, I think one aspect of this is really how do we communicate in a way that women are able to interact, right? So, Parul, do you want to just take this first? When you thought of being able to communicate a new product out, what was your intent? How did you go about it?
So given that our again our target audience is not somebody who's employed somewhere and I can go to an employer and give benefits, especially the work that we do is on social security and pensions. We look at an informal sector workforce who's everywhere. So our target audience is, we either work with trusted entities who are between these individuals. So whether they're organizations like Seva or their microfinance institutes, and I'd like to give you an example here. So one of the ways that we worked with Seva was with Seva Bank actually was running a huge financial literacy drive to enable women to get, start saving small amounts, 100 rupees, 200 rupees, 500 rupees for a long term with some possibility of taking out money as well. Now, because of the literacy drive, they had questions around, am I actually going to live that long, what will happen if I die or whatever. But once they understood the Seva saying this is good for you, a trustworthy organization at the front end, because if Parul goes and says something, it's not, it's not going to be trusted or anything, but it is the entity which is standing in front who's giving that access to them. Features of the product which are very easy to understand and explain. Within the first year, we had 100,000 women who joined, Shelly. We did this in about 10 years ago, and those women are still saving because they may not know how to read their statement, but they understand how their money is increasing with compounding. The second part is doing it is with technology, where the interface of the technology is simple, where it is vernacular. We actually use a few WhatsApp channels to onboard people as well, where the answers are numerical, one for male, two for female, so it's not that intimidating. And the servicing part, where there is a helpline that speaks to you again in the same language, pretty much giving the same services as Axis Bank would give to all the women customers. We want to be able to give the same kind of the sachet model, as they say, which I don't really like the term, but it is the same quality, the same kinds of products, the same kind of services that I receive. So when I call up Axis Bank and they'll say, ma'am, I want to change my password, she'll say, look left of screen, right of screen. They should get the same kind of service in, with a few
Yeah.
tippity taps.
So, what I find really fascinating is how women are taking to new products that are coming onto the table. And one such very exciting space is crypto. We've had the really wonderful opportunity to chat with Kavita in the past and do detailed stories on how women are taking to cryptocurrency in a big way. Your fund, Kavita, has been focusing on how to see more and more female investors in this space. What are you picking up?
Hey, Shal, first of all, thank you for having me. I think I want to answer something which we were talking around 10 minutes back. I think financial literacy at the very early stage for women is the biggest problem. And it is not just for people who are coming from an individual background or coming from a lower income background. It's actually, I was talking about this with myself at a show a couple of days back. Like, I grew up in a decent financial supported ecosystem, but nobody at home or even going to a school like Xavier's taught me early on how much percentage I need to save with my first job, or how I need to have a saving account, or I need to start putting, like, I remember when I took my first job and they said 401 allocation. I had no idea what the hell 401k meant at that point of time. And I was walking in with one of the most premium engineering degree and do one of the great job. And I was sitting there asking my HR, not negotiating, but asking what the hell is 401k and what is stock plans and how does it work? And I was supposed to join a trading flow. So I feel like that financial literacy for every person out there, boys pick it up very fast because fathers are usually talking to them about business on the table, but women really needs to have it. And I think that is what, going to Rajiv and Parul, and also coming to the new product which you're talking about, which we would love to talk about, is one of the reason cryptocurrency get adopted by women so fast is because, first of all, you don't have to go through a private wealth manager, you don't have to go through somebody external to tell you what to do and try to berate you or put you down in a lot of communities or countries. I you will be very surprised to know one of the epicenter of crypto adoption by women is Middle East, actually, because this is one currency where you can do not need to have a bank account along with your husband, brother, or father. This is one currency where your savings are not shared with any one of them. It's very private.
Yeah.
And this is the first time there is an experience for women where they can do whatever they want to do with full privacy.
Yeah. And do you hear from women that this is one of their biggest impediments when it comes to the traditional finance routes?
Oh yeah, I'm telling you about myself. When I was trying to do this 401k, I called up my dad after talking to HR because I thought he will tell me this is right or this is wrong, whatever they're saying. I didn't call my mom. I didn't call my sister. I didn't call my first cousin who was running a very senior bank. She was a bank executive. I just felt like the first comfort thing was the men associated next to me or my guy friends from jobs. And I felt, and I was looking back at it when I was talking to somebody 2 days back. I was more comfortable asking it my friends who were also joining first time the same jobs and having the same things to settle with, especially with respect to my stock allocation. Then I didn't even think of asking my girlfriends. It is just so set in the brain. And I have so many women, so many young girls, and so many senior people who have come to me, even from countries like Australia and within US, who have said that the reason they are so bullish on crypto is because they feel like it is their financial involvement instead of three other people's telling them what to do.
Right. So, a quick question here, Rajiv, to add to what Kavita is saying, that this whole piece around other opportunities that are emerging on the financial sector, could they hold the key? Or do you think, at least for now, there'll possibly be, I will not just do this or that, I would explore both, and I'd recognize that crypto is in an early stage from at least a female point of view in India, though
I
growing.
found the insights that Kavita just spoke about very interesting, especially in the Middle East and such like. I'm not really sure where we stand here in India, among women around this, but I think to the extent that getting women into crypto is the least of our problems at this point in time. And I think
Recognize
fundamentally, if we need to get more people into financial assets, do SIPs, mutual funds, ensure that you know what insurance that you need, both general and life insurance, are you adequately covered. um, yes, you are eligible for a loan, you have a job, you are eligible for a loan, not your boyfriend or husband or father. You are eligible for a loan, and you can actually create an asset of your own. Banks will be happy to sort of lend to you. When I say women, and I don't see enough of that as well. In fact, to
Yeah.
the point that Parul was making, we run a very large program called the Joint Liability Group business. We've got over 1 million people there. It's these women who get together and jointly and severally guarantee each other to be able to borrow little amounts of money, typically anything between 25 to 50,000 rupees, to be able to grow their business. And this whole thing is run by women. We Needless to say, the banks also ensure that we keep the husband informed that the wife is taking on this liability, and this is a piece that is working beautifully.
Yeah.
The risks on this are, notwithstanding demonetization and the pandemic, etc. The risks on these portfolios is excellent.
Yeah.
And so therefore I think you've got to look at this. Women have got to look at financial services in a more holistic manner, rather than, hey, how much should I save and where should I save, etc. But on a certainly more holistic manner, both on the asset as well as on the liability side.
Yeah. So there's one thing to be said, though, that one is seeing that the experimentation with money, certainly in urban millennials in India, is at an all-time high. So, Kavita, in your sort of reading, has this interest in money started earlier than the traditional age levels we were seeing?
So I So I think I live in a bubble world, as I think Rajiv would say, he live in a bubble world of his traditional money. I live in a bubble world of my crypto money, right? So for me, when I look at the people who comes in investing, look at the any of the exchanges in India, CoinSwitch, Kuber, CoinDCX, WazirX, when they actually report numbers out there, they are always saying that there are age between 21 to 32 is the main age where 78% of the new crypto adopters or the big traders are coming in. Mostly individuals, the institutionalized crypto trading is not there in India yet. And if you look at the numbers, 72% of them are women. So that is the first time when you have a new financial system, which is supposedly from the traditional lens is more risky, as a riskier financial product because regulations are still figuring it out. But at the same time, you have way more numbers, way majority of women participating from a young age. And I think there are multiple reasons for that. The first reason is that uh, I think a lot of these young people who are coming, they think of it as a global currency. They think of it that if they go abroad to study, they go abroad to work, they can have this pool of money with them. Second thing is, this is outside, as I said, privacy is still, people don't realize how much women are looking for their savings and privacy. I think when I look at most of the people who work with us, there is some sort of there is some sort of an alignment where their family knows what is their paycheck, their family knows what is their real estate investment or the loans on them, but nobody really try to understand how much crypto do you have, including myself. I don't think my parents have ever asked me, or any relative embarrassingly have ever asked me in a wedding, how much crypto do you have. They all ask you, beta, what is your paycheck, how much are you making right now? Right? What is your package? But
Yeah,
I think
package.
I think so. This particular experience is the first time as a woman to have this, which travels with you across the globe and which keeps with you even after the marriage, and you don't share it at the on the marriage, right? During the
Yeah.
marriage. So it's changing. It's changing. I'm very, very flabbergasted. I recently was in India and I met somebody from Punjab, from a village from a Punjab, and she's a student in her engineering college, working as a receptionist somewhere, and she has some crypto, and I was just like I sat down with her, I took her out for coffee, and I'm like, I just want to understand your thought process, that maybe you
Fine.
need all the money you're making as a receptionist to go towards your education, to maybe support your family. Why crypto? And she's like, oh, because I just realized that I see on Twitter, because it's so open education, you don't have to go to somebody to educate you, you can really learn about this. She said, I see all of these people making all this money, and I said, okay, what can I live with losing everything and thinking Babaji ko chada diya. That was her word. And so I just started buying 100 rupees from CoinSwitch Kuber, 100 rupees every day on crypto. And then it made me a lot of money and I paid my loan with it. So it's a very different thinking now.
Yeah, but I just want to say this in the interest of our audience that this is just an experience and an anecdotal information that Kavita has shared.
Yeah.
So please be extremely conscious about how you go about investing, sharing your money, and sort of taking out your savings. And
No financial
we're not
advice, please.
glamorizing any form of investment here on our show. To just be clear on that. But I'll come to Parul. Parul, I just want to take a sort of vantage point of view. While there are all kinds of movements on the ground to see how we can get more and more people involved in the broader financial system as well as the innovative financial system, really, do you see a fundamental reason, or rather the absence of fact that we are not talking about this at scale? And I'm going to ask this to Rajiv too. The intent I hear from all bankers. I don't see the sound of this sounding literally like beti bachao, beti padhao, पैसे बचाओ या पैसे invest करो. You don't ever see young women being targeted as consumers of finance enough. Just what are your thoughts there, and how you guys brainstorm this?
I think there are two things here, Shaili. One thing is to say that you cannot ignore that 50% of the global population is female. So the opportunity is huge. However, the fiscal cost can be a lot because women typically outlive men and the longevity is more. So the fiscal cost for government is going to be much more if you don't think about women, right? So that's the one part. But the second part on how do you tackle this, I would actually take a little leaf from what Kavita said. Even in technology and access points, we're at a crossroads, not a crossroad, but we're at a stage where we need to cater to somebody who's between 18 and 35, who's aspirational, has a smartphone, is earning a certain amount and wants to save. And then there is the 35 and above, where the importance of saving is much more. They've reached a stage where they need to take care of their families, yet they're not technologically savvy. So I think both these points of view need to be taken, because this transition phase is for another 20 to 30 years. After that, everybody is on level playing ground, right? So I think that's the one thing that needs to be taken care of. The third thing about, I think a lot of the things on the ground level, Shelly, may not be sort of a billboard kind of an education, because a woman does not, and I speak from personal experience, if you put a hoarding or awareness out there, you may not feel it's for you, right? It is for general public, it is for someone else, right?
Unless targeted at you,
Unless
unless
it's
it's
targeted
with
at me.
you.
But even the target coloring it pink doesn't make it targeting for me. Targeting for me, right? And I think maybe sometimes you need to look at it, that it cannot come from women, don't come from a point of view of designing things because they need to acquire knowledge. We already know, right? So when Kavita talks about this woman who's sitting in Punjab doing a crypto, I can actually tell you a woman who had a pension goat, sort of an equalizer. Shamin Bano lived in Hyderabad, and she was a regular saver in her pension program. I actually went to meet her and I said, "How are you able to save regularly?" She says, "Oh, I'm a goat farmer. Every Eid, I sort of one goat is designated to my pension savings." I said, "Super." I said, "How do you inflation index it? Because you're increasing your savings." She says, "I don't know what you're talking about, but the goat cost me 2,500 this year and 3,500 the next year. So I'm increasing more and saving more." So the point really is that they understand finances. It is how you approach them and educate them, what kind of tippity tap buttons you give them, which are not intimidating, easy. And even if they can be intimidating, because like I said, it's in a transition phase. How do you service them once they do it? Because trust me, Shelly, when you give a woman a financial service through technology, if you say that she will withdraw her money to check the plumbing,
Yeah.
and once the plumbing is, and you deliver on what you have promised, she's a saver for life. And
Yeah.
clearly, you change a woman, you change a tribe, right? So, and
Yeah.
she's going to change the generations to come. That's really it.
Yeah, which is really why I'm so sort of energetic about this notion that the way we've tried to transform the idea that educating a girl child is so important. I think we need an equivalent noise factor there. To the related, point that Parul made, Rajiv, I just want to understand from you: are we going at technology adoption conversations much faster than we are trying to actually get more and more women to adopt to that technology? Perhaps that needs to happen far more in sync.
I think it's the issue is financial literacy. And I think the financial literacy needs to start in schools. I'm really, really shocked the fact that when my kids left school, they didn't know how to write a check. I mean, they. But having said that, they're quite comfortable using the mobile app and transferring money or using Venmo or whatever it is. But you know, do you understand investments, the value of money, inflation? That's all got to come from school. And once that foundation is in place, then we can use technology. And I think adoption of technology, whether it is in Bombay or deep in some village in Punjab, I don't think it's a problem at all anymore. I think that ship has sailed. You're seeing that pretty much everybody has a mobile phone, and whether they want to make TikTok videos or whether they're on WhatsApp or whatever it is. Adoption of technology is not a problem, but I think it is the whole issue around financial literacy, and what do you do with money? What do you do with money when you actually
Yeah,
get it? That's the
yeah,
challenge.
yeah.
And
And
and and I think and I think, to
yeah,
be fair, there is a new movement around that as well, in terms of this whole bunch of influencers who are creating content on Insta and YouTube,
Yeah,
trying to educate people, which I think is great. I mean, we may not get
Can
it in
I
school,
can
but
I
if kids are
pitch
going to
in
watch
something,
YouTube and
Rajiv?
use it, that's great.
yeah.
Rajiv,
Sure,
I want
Kavita, go
to.
ahead.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sorry, I want to pitch in something, Rajiv. I'm not going to name this bank. It's not Axis Bank, just for the record. It's another bank, but without naming them. I have an NRI account in that bank. Okay, and of course, it's purely just my name on the NRI account, and then the NRO account I have joined with my mom, right? And you will not believe it that the I went to the bank recently. I haven't been to that bank for like 3 years or 4 years since I had the account. I do everything online, da da da, simple pure. I recently went to the bank, and the guy whom I'm showing my passport, my ID, didn't have a checkbook. You're right. I still actually don't know how to write a check. I'm get very confused. So I try to do all the wires, and I walk into the bank, and the bank manager, the head of the bank particular branch, actually looked at me and said, "Oh, let me call your dad." And I'm like, "It's my name on the bank. It's my account. Every verification thing on your table. Why do you need to call my bank? Why do you need to call my
Yeah,
dad?"
yeah,
And he's like, "We know him. We don't know you." And I think that just took me by so much surprise that I was like, you know what? I'll just sit outside and do it over computer than walking into your branch, because you just made me realize that my money is not worth it.
yeah. No, that's
I
a
think
great
I
story.
think you should shut that account right away and move to
And go-
Axis. Sorry, sorry, Sherry, to do this,
I know
do this
Kavita
shameless
walked into
pitch.
it by mentioning and clarifying, giving you that temporary relief. I've noticed that. But I think this is a very important story because I hear this from women day in and day out. And by the way, here at the Digital Women Awards, for 7 years, we've been having a discussion each year on money and women for a reason, because we're trying to understand, has anything changed? No doubt that what Kavita said, this desire to move people agnostic banking is a huge plus for women. They really don't want to go out there and build relationships with managers who will then tell them about their father or grandfather and want validation of your husband who you have separated from for
And
whatever reason.
100%
Right.
asked you, madam, are you married or not? Are you planning one?
So there are all kinds of complications there, but I think so one of the things that this sort of leads me to is that if one looks at the global average of women in fintech, women leaders in fintech is 6%. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted Kavita on this discussion, because having somebody who's running a blockchain fund itself, I think, often comes down to people saying, oh, you know what, wow, we hardly have any women out there doing this stuff, right? And I find the same in the banking sector today, not just in India, but elsewhere, but fintech more so, right? Because the new startup tech piece with money is changing the game, supposedly. So, quickly, Kavita, to ask you, what has it been to be a leader in fintech on the top? How are you navigating this entire space, which is clearly making women feel so far that they're a minority?
Um, it is funny because I didn't think of it for the longest time. And then someone pointed out to me that I was on the board of 18 blockchain companies, and I was the only woman on each of those boards. And I realized fine when it was pointed out to me, I realized the anxiousness of why I had to prepare so much before the board meeting, because I had this unset pressure on me which I didn't see on other people. So that it has changed a lot, at least in the blockchain and crypto space, and changing much more faster than other traditional places, because it is a new technology. I also teach at Stanford. Our classes, one semester is for undergrad, one semester is for masters and PhD. And I am seeing more and more women in undergrad, irrespective of their major being economics or business or computer science or something, attending the classes, because they feel like they don't, even if they don't make a career out of it, this is something they are going to do personally. So I have started seeing the change of landscape. 2000, I started in this space 2013, 2013 to 2018. We were pretty much 4 women in the whole blockchain crypto space across the globe. And we had our WhatsApp group at that point of time. And then 2018 to 2021, now I'm seeing most of the funds out there having at least one junior partner or a principal as a woman, who of course going to grow up to be a senior one. We are seeing more and more technology companies coming out as women. So I see the change happening much more faster than any other traditional space.
Yeah. Well, clearly, this isn't sort of symptomatic of just the fintech space. We have other sectors as well that face that, but particularly so here. Parul, before I ask Rajiv for his conclusive remarks, so I mean, I just want to know from you how you see the next couple of years in fintech when it comes to the female factor in terms of the opportunity for growth.
I think technology has a huge part to play in this. The services of technology need to be the same as a man gets or a woman gets, but I think realizing the needs of a woman in terms of a user friendly interface is very important. Education on the kind of technology and access points is very important. Using currently there is a lot of focus on businesses trying to get people to download apps and then keep them on those apps. And then there is a competition to take real estate on the phone, which is actually may not be serving the purpose that we're trying to do. I think using a collaborative effort to reach out to them through community based organizations, through central and state governments, through cooperatives and microfinance institutes, I think is the way to go forward. There has to be a word for public good as financial literacy, which has to be
Mm,
created on a much larger level. And
yeah.
that's when the initiation of education at an earlier age will trickle down into my mother playing Candy Crush and using the same Access Bam app to save for her role for her banking systems. I think it has to be as simple as that. It is actually happening, Shelly. It happens
Yeah.
in we're working in Kenya, we're working in Rwanda, where women use WhatsApp, they use USSD, they use web interface, and they use app. It doesn't matter where they enter the system from.
Yeah.
The experience is the same. The portability is the same, and I think that is what is the key to keeping women engaged to their financial services. I work in pensions. I have to be the eternal optimist, which I am. And I think getting someone married to a longer term financial behavior takes care of your shorter term needs, which even Rajiv spoke about, or Kavita is talking about alternative financial needs, which then
Yeah.
ties into everything.
So that's an interesting segue for me, Rajiv. Do you see that in the future, individuals will find that for them, multiple innovative, both traditional and alternative means of investing and access to money is what is going to play out as the big story?
I think I actually want to take this at a slightly one level higher. I think what we've got to work bloody hard at is to ensure that more and more women join the workforce, and people, women already in the workforce, continue to be engaged as economic entities. And I think, how can you have a situation where in this country participation of women in workforce continues to decline on a year basis, and we're doing nothing about it? How can you have a situation where we talk about economic growth, where participation rates are in the 20%? So I think we've got to do whatever it takes to get that number up first and foremost. I think once that happens, and for that multiple things need to happen. I think we've got to ensure that women have equality, women have safety. All those issues need to be taken care of for them to have the confidence to either get into the workforce or continue to stay in the workforce.
Yeah.
Once that happens, once they become economic entities, then we can worry about what they're doing with their money, where they're saving, where they're investing, whether
Yeah.
they should be buying crypto or goats, as the case may be. To me, is a second order problem. I
Yeah.
think the bigger issue that we have is to ensure that we get more and more participation. May not necessarily be into the formal sector, but at least into the informal sector. And now that work from home has become a reality,
Yeah. Huge
I'm really,
opportunity.
really hoping that this number will hopefully go up in the years to come.
Yeah, indeed. In fact, one of the things that you said really does strike me that today, not only are we looking at the fact that our workforce levels are dwindling, we aren't doing enough for it. In fact, the pandemic has pushed back any effort towards gender equality or equaling even pay gaps, has now got pushed back even more. So our task has gotten harder as a collective. But a final word, Kavita, from you. There's less than 1% of female founded fintechs in the world that have got funded. Less than 1%. I mean, I think one has to pinch oneself to believe that that is a number. And when I say that, I should qualify solely founded by women. So the 6 or 10% number is when you have a male partner. Looking at this, we do need more women who set up funds and go out there and invest in women, because this whole thing is going to work like a machinery, whether it's what the government says, whether it's what banking sector does, what new apps do, or what alternative investments have to offer, or what funds invest in.
Shaili, I feel like it's actually just not a linear problem. It's a problem from both sides. So when a women start a fund, and I'll tell you personally from my experience, when I started raising my own fund, a lot of LPs ask me, "Oh, are you only going to invest in women?" And I'm like, "No, we're going to invest in everyone." But of course, I think like a lot of women founders will be interested to talking to us, and we want to put some sort of a mark that a colored woman has in US, has started her own fund in this space. And that's why I'm happy to go with $100 million fund instead of running $1 billion fund for someone else. But also when I talk to a lot of women founders who comes and I'm like, "Hey, you are letting somebody else lead it, or you are doing a great project, we want to be part of it." They're like, "We would love to have you. We'll give you advisory tokens to be on our board. But I want a mainstream fund to lead it. Otherwise, people will think it's just women doing women things." And this thinking from both sides are slowly going to change. People don't realize even founders sometimes don't want us to be in their fund because it's a women driven fund and they don't want a particular optic associated with their startup. So we are handling that from both sides, and I think it is at least now I see more conversations like what you are curating coming out, changing that whole optic and changing that we are not running a closed mafia, that other people are not invited to it, and the other way around. So yeah, trying hard on both sides for that.
Yeah. True. I really want to wish all of you luck, because you have a big task along with me to get this sorted out. And we're here for the long term, but I think the long term is really very long. But Rajiv, Kavita, and Parul, really good to have you. And thank you for covering so many aspects of different industries that each one of you work in here at the Digital Women Awards. Our conversations will continue on all of these subjects, but I truly appreciate all of you joining us with your individual as well as company perspectives on this. Thanks very much. Stay tuned to the Digital Women Awards. It's a 3-day virtual conference. Tomorrow you will be having the Minister for Child and Women Development, Smriti Irani. Also the IT Minister, Rajiv Chandrasekhar, who's also the Minister for Entrepreneurship and Skill Development. A host of other speakers will be coming through, Indra Nui and many others. So stay tuned and watch out for the agenda on our social channels. Thanks so much. See you later.
Thank you.
The internet gives them confidence and becomes a key source of information that they need and helps empower them.
Technology, ideas, and a woman out there with, the guts and gumption to say, "I'm going to do something with my life." I think that's a winning combination.
Sisterhood is is the most important, right? Because nobody understands it better than another woman.
And the rest of them go, "Wow, how did you make this?" Everybody should just dare to dream and dare to dream big, because it is just so possible. It has not been easy, but it has been fun.
पहले के 3 साल जो थे हमारे, उसमें हमने बस अपना ब्रांड बनाना, अपना इमेज बनाने का काम किया.
I wasn't so good at numbers and I wasn't so good at, looking at the business plan, and so I let that slide. You realize that becomes a problem, when we went out to the market to raise money, and I had to completely change as a person.